All right, let's get right into it. Have you ever had one of those days where you feel like a genius, like you're firing on all cylinders, only to wake up the next day feeling like you can barely string a sentence together? Well, today, we're pulling back the curtain on the hidden variable that explains this frustrating and, frankly, universal inconsistency.
I mean, really think about it for a second. Some days, you are on fire. You're a creative powerhouse, a patient and understanding partner, a productivity machine. And then, there are the other days, the days where you're just not. It can honestly feel like two completely different people are taking turns at the controls of your brain.
So let's break this down. Let's call them Monday you and Tuesday you. Monday you is focused, sharp, creative, can handle anything you throw at them. But then Tuesday you shows up, and suddenly the smallest task feels like climbing a mountain, your thinking feels rigid, and your patience is just gone. We've all been there. So what gives? What is really happening here?
And here's the big idea, the real shift in perspective we're going to explore. What if that Jekyll and Hyde experience isn't about a flaw in your character? What if it's not a lack of willpower or a personal failure? What if the difference is some invisible force, something acting on your mind? This brings us to what we can call the variability puzzle. We're about to unpack why we seem so wildly inconsistent from one day to the next, and maybe, just maybe, challenge the harsh way we usually judge ourselves for it.
You know how it goes. When you have one of those off days, you blame yourself, right? You reach for these labels. I'm so undisciplined. I'm being too emotional. Why can't I just be consistent? We see it as a personal failing. But here's the thing. That's just not the whole story. It's actually a complete misreading of the situation. You see, if we look at this from a structural perspective, think of it like looking at the actual architecture of your mind, this variability isn't random chaos. It's predictable. In fact, it's not a bug in your system at all. It's a feature.
And this is a really crucial reframe. That feeling of being scattered or stuck isn't a failure. It's a signal. It's like a check engine light for your brain. It's your cognitive system telling you, hey, the demand being placed on me has changed, even if your brain itself is exactly the same.
So if our inconsistency is a signal, what's it signaling? What's the missing piece of the puzzle? We need to uncover the hidden variable that explains these dramatic shifts in our abilities.
This is it. This is the one concept that unlocks the entire puzzle. The real reason Monday you feels like a superhero and Tuesday you feels, well, like they need a nap, it all comes down to a single powerful factor.
And that word is load. That's it. That's the hidden variable, the invisible force that's pulling the strings, shaping your experience and performance from moment to moment. But, okay, what is load exactly?
All right, let's get into the nuts and bolts. How does this invisible force actually work? To really get it, we need to be super clear on what load is, and maybe even more importantly, what it isn't.
First off, and this is crucial, load is not just another word for stress. It's not the same thing as feeling an emotion or feeling under pressure. Now sure, those things can absolutely add to your load, but they aren't the thing itself. Load is something more fundamental. It's the total structural demand on your mind.
So, here's the formal definition. Load is the sum total of all the structural challenges your brain is trying to juggle at any given moment. And here's the kicker. It's not about how you feel about the demand. It's about the objective, raw complexity of the demand itself. And this demand, this load, it comes from everywhere. And it all just stacks up. Think about it. That huge, complex project at work. That weird, ambiguous email from your colleague, worrying about the future, feeling like you're being judged, or even just having a tight deadline breathing down your neck. All of that, it's all adding to your total load.
So, what actually happens inside your head when all these sources of load start to pile up? How does it literally change the way you think and behave?
Okay, this is such a cool way to visualize it. It's a process called topological narrowing. Imagine you're in a field. When the load is low, you can see all these different paths you could take. You've got tons of options. But as the load cranks up, some of those paths just disappear. Your options literally narrow. And at super high load, you're left with one single paved highway, your default setting. You're not getting dumber, your brain is just being efficient, conserving energy by sticking to the easiest route it knows.
And this isn't a random glitch. As those options shrink, your brain goes into a kind of self-preservation mode. It activates what are called stabilisation mechanisms. It's an incredibly intelligent, protective move to keep the whole system from becoming incoherent or just short-circuiting under all that strain.
So what does this stabilization actually look like in real life? Well, it looks a lot like that Tuesday you we were talking about. It looks like falling back on old habits. It looks like being rigid in your thinking. It looks like being resistant to new ideas. But now we can see these aren't moral failings. They're just the predictable outputs of a system under way too much load.
Okay, this is super important because it's a trap we all fall into. When we start to feel that overwhelm, what's our first instinct? To power through, right? To just try harder and force our way out of it. But that strategy is often the absolute worst thing you can do.
And look, you can be totally self-aware. You can know with perfect clarity, wow, I am really overwhelmed right now. But having that insight, that understanding, it doesn't actually make the load go away. You can't just think your way out of a structural problem.
In fact, trying to exert more control is what creates the trap. We can call it the control trap. You feel overwhelmed, so you start micromanaging yourself, monitoring and evaluating every single move. Am I doing this right? How am I coming across? But guess what? All of that self-monitoring, that's more work for your brain. It adds even more load to an already strained system, and you end up in this awful, vicious cycle.
So, let's bring all of this together. Once you understand the concept of load, it gives you a completely new way to interpret your own mind. It allows you to move away from that constant cycle of self-blame and towards some real structural clarity. This is the big payoff right here. The old way of seeing it was, I'm confused. The new way is, I'm under high load. What you used to call being rigid, you can now see that's just your system trying to stabilize itself. That mindless habit you keep falling back into, that's actually a mechanism to protect coherence. And what felt like a personal collapse, it was simply your system crossing a structural threshold. It's a shift from judgment to physics.
And if you remember just one thing from this whole explainer, let it be this. It's such a powerful idea. Behavior doesn't change because people change. Behavior changes because load moves. If you want more of those amazing Monday you days, the goal isn't to become a different person. The goal is to get better at seeing and managing the load acting upon you. So, I'll leave you with this question to think about. Now that you have a name for this hidden variable, now that you can see the load in your own life, and maybe in the lives of others, what are you going to start to see differently? Think about it.